One of the most important principles in our walk with God is to learn to forgive others. That means learn to let go of the hurt, of the bitterness, of the pain that others have caused us, and forgive them. Let go of that burden, that emotion that they have caused against you. Let it go. Well, when you open up our Bibles and read the story of Joseph in the Old Testament, we read of how injustice was done to Joseph by his brothers. He was put into the pit, then he was sold as a slave, and then from being a slave, then he was put into prison. But look at what Joseph does when he meets with his brothers. In Genesis 45 verse 3, we read there, it says, "Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'I am Joseph. Does my father still live?' But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed in his presence." That means the brothers began to feel bad for what they had done to Joseph. They were scared maybe, they were maybe shuddering, maybe there was fear. We don't know what the exact emotion was, but they were going through a crisis. And look at what Joseph does in verse 4. It says there, "And Joseph said to his brothers, 'Please come near to me.' So they came near. Then he said, 'I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt.'" Come on. Joseph knew very well. His memory was sharp. He knew that what his brothers had done to him. But do you know that the emotion behind that memory was healed? That means we look at Joseph remembering the things, but he does not react as per what his memory tells him. Let's look into verse 5. It says there, "But now do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves, because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life." Now he begins to look at things from God's perspective and says, "You meant it for bad, but God turned it. God meant it for good. God planned it. God orchestrated it. God worked it all together." When you read verse 8, we see what he says there. "So now it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and the Lord of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt." So look at that word. It says, "So now it was not you who sent me here." That means it was not you who put me in that pit. It was not you who put me in that prison. It was not you who put me into this land, but God planned it all. And when we read in Genesis 50 verse 20, it says there, "But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Look at the heart of Joseph. The memory is there. Sometimes the bitter things or the things that people have done against us, the memory remains, but the emotion behind that memory, God takes it away. And that's exactly what Joseph is going through. He has the memory, but now he looks at things and says, God turned it for good. He forgives his brothers. You see, when you look into the life of Joseph, we see him rising from the pit to the palace. We see him being promoted. But look at the character of Joseph, how it's being transformed. He is moved into a heart of forgiveness. He forgives his brothers. He lets go of all that they have done to him. And he begins to restore them. He begins to bless them. I want to encourage you, in our walk with God, forgiveness is very important. We need to learn to let go of that emotion, that burden, that pain that we are carrying. The memory may not go, but the emotion, we need to let it go. We need to bring it to God and say, "God, they meant it for evil, but I know you are going to turn it for good." And at the end of it all, God definitely works everything together for our good. So I want to encourage you, let us live by this principle. Forgive one another. Jesus himself teaches us, right? Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Let us live with a life with a heart of forgiveness. God bless you.